Indoor recreational activities, overcoming the anxiety and depression of selected grade 12 students of FSUU during enhanced community quarantine.
So in this part, I'm going to discuss you the background of our study, so let's proceed. Even at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is already evident that there is psychological and emotional impact onto the people. Its emergence has spread and created tons of concerns toward people, which leads to increased levels of anxiety. The Philippines COVID-19 crisis has also made a huge in the context of Philippine education. Classes were suspended and were postponed early due to lockdown. Due to the pandemic, loss of usual routine and reduced social and physical contact with others were frequently shown to cause boredom, frustration, and a sense of isolation from the rest of the world, which was distressing to people. This frustration was increased by not being able to take part in usual day-to-day activities such as shopping for basic necessities, going out, and etc. The researchers observed that the Philippine quarantine period causes boredom, anxiety, fear, and other mental issues among the students. This has also caused people to have the urge to go outside again since they are locked down upon their own homes for several months. The grade 12 students are no exemption from these mental issues since they are too victims of the pandemic lockdown. The sole purpose of this research is to identify and learn the aspects why the students do indoor recreational activities in order to cope up with the situation and whether if these recreational activities would be significant in coping up with the effects of the lockdown. Thus, this research should be conducted since it would be serve as an instrument whether recreational activities could help the students cope up with the effects of the enhanced community quarantine lockdown. It would also identify if these recreational activities could be a cause to further affect their mental health during the SCQ. The next part that I'm going to discuss is the theoretical framework or the theories that we used in our research. So let's begin. Lazaro states that the stress is experienced when a person perceives that the demands exceeds the personal and social resources the individual is able to mobilize. The figure above is called the transaction model of stress and coping. In his theory, it states that neither environmental event nor the person responds define stress. Instead, it is the individual perception of the psychological situation itself is a critical factor. Our study is focused on identifying how recreational activities can be a help during the effects of the lockdown. Now, the theory states that instead of environmental events that are happening, it is the perception of a person has caused the psychological distress which has caused the stress to that person. So we choose this theory because it would be essential to our study since it would be help to identify the cause why the students do recreational activities. Theory number 2. Recreation theory. Lazaro's theory of recreation states that when one is exhausted through toil, play recharges one's energy. Lazaros also distinguished between physical and mental energy, pointing out that when the brain is tired, a change of activity, particularly in the form of exercise, restores one's nervous energy. To illustrate, the desk worker who plays tennis after a long day's work simultaneously discharges surplus physical energy and restores mental energy. Since our research looks upon finding out the reason why the students do recreational activities, this theory, or we choose this theory because it would be a huge help in order to identify whether the students do indoor recreational activities in order for them to cope up with their situation or for other reasons. With the help of this theory, the researchers would be able to identify how the indoor recreational activities help grade 12 students of FSUU Morales campus cope up with their mental health issues such as anxiety and depression.
Statement of the problem. The study will be focusing on the following objectives. To assess if the recreational activities that have helped the grade 12 students overcome anxiety and depression during the enhanced community quarantine period through these questions. What are the indoor recreational activities performed by the grade 12 students during the whole quarantine period of April to May 2020? B. What are the reasons why they perform indoor recreational activities? Next, we have which among the indoor recreational activities promotes and enhances the students' mental well-being? And lastly, how do these indoor recreational activities help the students overcome anxiety and depression?
Review of related literature.
Most people experience feelings of anxiety or depression at times. Grief, school, work, illness, and other stressors can lead to feelings of sadness, worry, frustration, feeling low, and loneliness. These are normal in such a difficult time in life. This can interfere with the ability to carry out everyday activities such as getting to work on time and proper self-care. Having extended periods of lockdown and quarantine and inability to go out of the house for how many days itself are stressful for those who are not infected with COVID-19. The apprehension of COVID-19 pandemic situations is highly involved in emotional distress and also influences coping strategies or defense mechanisms of the brain. When people are living in a changing environment due to compulsory lockdown, psychologically they will feel uneasy and anxious. When going through a tough time like this pandemic, it is common for us all to experience having struggled to adjust to the new normal. When you're feeling sad or miserable most of the time, you might get depression. When you are feeling or having times of panic, continuously being on edge and worrying, you might get anxiety. Furthermore, indications of these two conditions will be helped by better self-care. Based on the study of Ler et al., it has been found that participation in different kinds of recreational activities has shown to be super effective in improving individuals' mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. Moreover, the participation in recreational activities that are physically active, promote social support, provide relaxation, and are culturally relevant were shown to be effective in easing the person's depression and anxiety. It is really important to learn the impacts of the necessity of recreation in a person's life as a whole. Due to the problems we are facing in today's society, it affects the way of life of the students. Different kinds of studies have shown the importance of recreation in one's life, especially in three aspects of physical health, mental health, and improving quality of life.
In this part of the video, I'm going to talk about the methodology, research design. In this study, the researchers were able to utilize a descriptive qualitative research design. It is a descriptive qualitative in the sense that this study merely describes what the students who have anxiety or depression do in regard with the recreational activities. Sample and sampling techniques. The researchers used the convenient sampling techniques in conducting the study. The selected respondents are close relationship-wise towards the researchers. The study since those grade 12 students with anxiety and depression were chosen to participate. The sample consists of 10 participants, in which those selected grade 12 students of Father Saturnino Orius University who either have anxiety or depression or both during the ECQ period. Instrumentation. An online interview was utilized due to the current situation by the researchers in order to obtain and to get better understanding on the situation and the experience of the respondent. Upon conducting an online interview, guide questions that were consist of 5 open-ended questions that were prepared in order to gather a sufficient data needed for the study. The interview is estimated run about 10 to 15 minutes per respondent.
Data analysis and presentation. The data gathered in this research is from the answers of the selected grade 12 students of Father Saturnino Orius University, Morelos campus, with the age ranging from 17 to 18 years old. Presented in this chapter are the summary of the gathered data, answering the research questions, discussing the effectiveness of the indoor recreational activities in order to cope up with anxiety and depression. Conclusions were drawn and recommendations of the researchers based on the analysis and interpretation of the data collected.
Conclusions and recommendations. In conclusion, there are different kinds of indoor recreational activities that were performed by the selected grade 12 students during the ECQ period from April to May 2020. They tend to play video games and as well as work out in their own homes. About half of the students work out or exercise in their own homes during ECQ period. Some of them were into board and card games. The reasons why they have conducted these kinds of activities is due to boredom and so that they would be productive in a way despite their current situations. Most of the students have said that all the recreational activities that they do is indeed helpful in coping up with their mental well-being. Although the ones who play video games, card and board games have answered that sometimes due to competitive aspect of what they play instead of being able to enhance mentally, they become triggered and may even worsen their situation. But to those who don't play video games, especially those who do physical recreational activity, they said that there are no negative results of what they are doing. The indoor recreational activities indeed are really helpful because it helps them to cope up with their mental health problems and as well as their boredom at home. Most of them even said that performing those recreational activities really helped them to relax their mind, help them to be productive, and lessen their stress during the enhanced community quarantine. The indoor recreational activities have helped them relieve their situation, but it does not literally remove what they are feeling. In regards of lockdown situation, they said that these activities help them ease with their current situation. By doing indoor recreational activities, it lessens their mental stress by the fact that they focus more on good side of the situation instead of just looking at all the negative things that surrounds their mind. Recommendations: to broaden the scope of the study by including other grade levels in the university so that the data gathered would be much more efficient. Further studies could also explore other mental health problems of the quarantine period. The researchers also recommend to explore more about outdoor recreational activities, whether they are much more effective to indoor recreational activities or not.